11 points clear of second place, guys. 11 whole points. And what a way to extend that gap with a massive away win at the Etihad, our first since 2018. Sure, Manchester City are having a disastrous season by their standards, but that doesn't take away from how incredible our 2-0 victory was, or how masterfully Arne Slot coached this one. We know you were itching to break it all down, right? From how Slot made a crucial tactical adjustment in the opening 15 minutes to fix an early issue, to how Pep Guardiola shot himself in the foot with his own setup, and finally, to how we parked the bus in the second half to secure the win. And no guys, parking the bus isn't always a bad thing. We'll explain why in just a bit. But before we dive into the analysis, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let's break down this game. Starting with the lineups, there weren't any major surprises. Alisson remained between the posts with Andrew Robertson, Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahima Konate, and Trent Alexander-Arnold forming the backline. In midfield, we had Ryan Gravenberch, Alexis Mac Allister, and Dominic Szoboszlai pulling the strings. Up front, Curtis Jones, Mohamed Salah, and Luis Diaz led the attack, with Diaz getting the nod over Diogo Jota in the starting 11. Now, let's start by breaking down how Slot immediately spotted a potential problem and wasted no time in finding a solution. From the opening minutes, Guardiola's City set up in a rather unorthodox build-up shape. On the surface, it might have looked like a standard 3-2-5, with Doku and Savinho holding width on the last line. But in reality, it was anything but that. Joško Vardiol was barely involved in the build-up, instead staying wide on the left to provide width. Meanwhile, Rico Lewis inverted into midfield, and Kevin De Bruyne drifted all the way out to the right-back position. Now, you might be wondering, why was this a problem for us? Well, let's break it down. In this same sequence, you can see us defending in our usual 4-2-4 mid-block. However, those clever rotations between De Bruyne and Lewis created a ton of space for City to exploit. The issue came down to player responsibilities. Mac Allister was tasked with marking De Bruyne, but when the Belgian pulled wide, it forced Van Dijk to step up into midfield to track Foden, who was operating as a false 9. Now, of course, Van Dijk is excellent at stepping up from his line, timing his jumps perfectly to put pressure on Foden every time City tried to play that pass. And while Foden did manage to receive the ball at times, that wasn't the real issue. The real problem was the space Van Dijk left behind every time he stepped up. Let's take a look at an example. Here you can see De Bruyne positioned all the way out at right back. Naturally, Mac Allister had to follow his movement, which left a massive gap in central midfield. Prime space for Foden to drop into. As a result, Van Dijk had to stay on high alert, ready to step up and challenge the Englishman. But now, take a look at the huge gap left behind Virgil. With a player like Omar Marmoush leading their attack, that space became a major concern. His pace and intelligent off-ball movement meant that if City managed to slip a ball in behind, we could have been in real trouble. Thankfully, Manchester City never really looked to exploit those spaces, and even if they had tried after that point, it wouldn't have mattered. Why? Because Arne Slot dealt with it perfectly. At first glance, it might have seemed like we were still defending in our usual 4-2-4 shape. But in reality, Slot made a subtle adjustment, shifting us into more of an asymmetrical 4-3-3. The key change, Luis Diaz and Curtis Jones later, started dropping deeper from the first line of press. This allowed him to track De Bruyne when he drifted wide, and also apply pressure on Rico Lewis when he received the ball. This in turn freed up Mac Allister to stick closer to Foden in central areas, effectively shutting down the dangerous gaps in our backline. This defensive tweak coincided perfectly with us taking the lead inside the first 15 minutes, and what a goal that was, guys. A brilliantly worked corner routine where Szoboszlai and Diaz overloaded the near post, flicking the ball on perfectly for our Egyptian king to finish the job. No surprises there. Another goal added to his ever-growing tally. Now, remember when we said Pep shot himself in the foot? Well, let's break down exactly how he did that and how Liverpool made him pay for it. To counter our usual 4-2 build-up shape, Pep Guardiola set City up in a 4-1-4-1 block. The problem, they weren't applying nearly enough pressure, which gave us plenty of time on the ball to dictate play. But that wasn't the only issue. Take a look at Foden's positioning here. He's trying to block the passing lane to Van Dijk, essentially forcing our build-up to the right-hand side. Sounds like a solid plan on paper, right? Well, did anyone tell Pep that Ibrahima Konate and Trent Alexander-Arnold are arguably our best pairing when it comes to progressing the ball from deep? Both of them are more than capable of breaking lines or pinging long balls straight to Salah and Diaz. But hey, we're not complaining, because this exact setup led directly to our second goal. Here you can see Foden pressing Van Dijk before staying tight on him to block the switch back to our left-hand side. But guess what? We didn't even need to switch play at all. First, Konate broke City's structure with a brilliant diagonal pass straight to Salah. Then, once the Egyptian laid it off to Trent, our right back stepped up and delivered a top quality ball over the top for Salah again. From there, it was pure magic. Salah effortlessly danced around Guardiola before laying it off for Szoboszlai, who slotted home our second goal. 2-0 at the break. And while City's in possession setup was decent, let's be honest, we never really felt truly threatened when they attacked. In fact, we don't know about you guys, but that feeling of complete control only got stronger in the second half, even though we spent most of it sitting deep and defending. Arne Slot made a conscious decision in the second half. Drop the block deeper, let City have the ball, and force them wide where their wingers could dribble all they wanted. And why didn't we ever feel like we were going to concede? Simple, our backline morphed into a solid back five, sometimes even six, with McAllister and Gravenberch dropping deep to reinforce the defensive shape. Once City played it wide, we had the perfect response. We consistently tripled up on their wingers. Just look at this. Our fullbacks, the midfield trio, and even Salah and Jones all deserve massive credit for tracking back and closing players down. The sheer work rate was immense. No wonder Szoboszlai was lying flat on the ground, barely breathing after the final whistle. So why was this low block so effective? Well, first off, City simply couldn't sustain pressure for long periods, and that was mainly down to us. Our relentless physicality and constant transition threat kept them on edge. They knew that every misplaced pass or wrong decision could instantly turn into a dangerous counter-attack against them. Another key factor, the absence of Erling Haaland. Let's be real, if he were on the pitch, we highly doubt Slot would have dropped the block that deep. Without Haaland, City had almost no box presence and zero real aerial threat. So no matter how many times they worked the ball out wide, they just couldn't find a way to break us down. Every time they looked to deliver a cross or slip a ball into the box, we had it completely clogged up, leaving them with nothing. And that's how Arne Slot and Liverpool pulled off a massive 2-0 win at the Etihad. A tactical masterclass, a rock-solid defensive display, and two brilliantly executed goals. It doesn't get much better than that. This result not only extends our lead at the top, but also sends a clear message to the rest of the league. Winning at the Etihad is never easy, no matter how shaky City might be this season, and doing it in such a controlled manner makes it even sweeter. Arne Slot deserves huge credit for his in-game adjustments, from fixing our defensive structure early on to perfectly managing the second half. And of course, the players put in an unbelievable shift. Salah delivering in the big moments, Szoboszlai running himself into the ground, and the entire backline stepping up when it mattered most. Now the big question is, can we keep this momentum going? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Are we actually on course to win the league this season? If you enjoyed the analysis, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and we'll see you in the next one.